Hi, in this video we are going to start with unsupervised learning, and this video is going to be an introduction for unsupervised learning where we are going to see a lot of methods that we use to evaluate unsupervised learning algorithms. So the first thing that we will discuss is what is the difference between labeled and unlabeled data. The labeled data is when the target variable is defined. Okay, the target variable is defined and it has a specific value. Okay. So for example, classifying the risk of heart attack based on features like age of a person or BP of a person. So basically we are having features and also we are having labels. We know how the output is going to look like. That is what we call as the labeled data. Whereas if we talk about unlabeled data, we only have features, we are not having any labels. Okay. So for example, the real life data, any type of real life data is can be considered as unlabeled data. For example, the data on online shopping websites, the past purchase we have, the sites that visited that we have, but the next thing, okay, the how the output is going to look like, okay, that is something that we don't have. All right, so that is what we call as the unlabeled data. There are no target labels, and this is used in product recommendation. How do we recommend product using unlabeled data? That we are going to discuss very soon. The aim of unlabeled data is to find the patterns based on the past records. Okay, this is the aim of unlabeled data. All right. There are three major categories of unsupervised learning algorithms. So by the way, unlabeled data is where we use unsupervised machine learning. Okay, so where there are three major categories where we use unsupervised machine learning algorithms. First, we have clustering, then we have association analysis, then we have dimensionality reduction. Okay. In this video we are going to talk in little brief about all these categories, and then we are going to have a very good discussion in all of them in the upcoming videos. So we'll start with clustering. The clustering is basically as you must have heard about clusters. What are clusters? Clusters are the places where the points inside are having similar properties. Okay, so if you are talking about a cluster of cities, then all the cities must be having the same type of features, right? So the target in clustering, our target is to place similar data points together to form a cluster. Now suppose our data is looking like this, and we have plot this graph between two features. So we have red points, pink points, and green points, and it is very clear that they are forming three clusters. Okay, so similarity between the data points is calculated using a lot of distance measuring techniques that we are going to discuss in clusters. Now here the points are colored. Okay, in real life the points are not colored. So how do we calculate which points are related to each other? That is done by various distance measuring techniques, and we are going to discuss about them also. Now the data points which are close are put in the same cluster, whereas the points far away are put in different clusters. Okay, now the real life example of clustering is Google News. Okay, so what is Google News? Google News does is it puts there is some news. Okay, now what it does different topics in different clusters. Now suppose we have a cluster for sports, we have tech, we have politics. So whenever a news about sports comes up, it goes into the cluster of sports. Okay, then we have tech, then we have politics. Now the thing is, inside the cluster of tech, we have a lot of other clusters. Okay, inside tech we can talk about laptops, we can talk about mobiles, we can talk about televisions, headphones. A lot of clusters, a lot of sub clusters we can have inside a cluster. So this is what clustering is. Okay, clustering is also used for fraud detection. If you remember, in the start of supervised learning in linear regression, I discussed that we are going to discuss how our outliers can be used to detect the fraud. This is how we use. Okay, so the detection of anomalies and outliers. So we find out the data points which do not belong to any cluster, and these data points are a possible fraud. Now, the next thing that we are going to discuss is association analysis. What is association analysis? This is the process of identifying the relationship between large data sets. Okay, basically, suppose we are going into a shopping mall, okay, and there are a large number of items that are available. Association analysis is the process of finding the relationships between all the items that are available. For example, uh, if you are just talking about logically, okay, there is no data involved right now. uh, Refined oil and cold drinks, they are not related at all, whereas chips and cold drink have some type of association related with them. So this is what we do. We form a large from a large number of items. We find items that are purchased together frequently. And when you visit shopping websites like Amazon or Flipkart, you can whenever you are on a product, you can scroll down. You can see that it is always showing you recommendation that they are frequently purchased together. So this is the association analysis that is being performed on the back end. Okay. So it is very widely used by large shopping complexes like Walmart or Best Price or Easy Day, Big Bazaar, and everything. And they use this analysis to put the products which are related to each other together, so that the customer has a hassle-free experience. It can If there is a customer for cold drinks, then the chips are right next to them, so that the customer gets everything in the same place, and basically customer end up purchasing more, so it also benefit the business. What are some of the applications for association analysis? We have recommendation mechanisms, as we have just seen. Even the recommendation mechanisms of Netflix and Amazon Prime, all the streaming platforms are also built on this. Then we have market basket analysis, the idea of putting similar product together. And then they are also used in medical diagnostics. And the third category that we talk about is dimensionality reduction. As we just If you remember, in support vector machines, the idea was to increase the dimension, and I said that increasing the dimension is never a good idea because it increases the complexity of our problem. But yeah, so that is why what we do, we decrease that dimension of our model, to make it more computable. Okay, so there are some data sets which are having too many features. Okay, for example, our voice, this voice is having too many features, and a lot of those features are very irrelevant. So what is the idea of dimensionality reduction? The idea is to eliminate the irrelevant features. Okay, and even from the relevant features, extract the information in such a way that we do not need a lot of features that we need. Okay, so why do we have to reduce the dimensions? The data with less dimension is better to visualize and interpret it. Yeah, it's very obvious now, because yeah, it's the next point we'll see. The more number of dimensions, the more complex it gets to comprehend the data. Okay, so when we are talking about visualization, we have seen 1D visualization, 2D visualization, and some software can also provide 3D visualization. What is after that? Okay, we do not know how to visualize beyond 3D, right? It becomes very tough. In fact, finding the hidden patterns and correlation become very difficult. So reducing dimension also makes the data easier to store and process, and also to visualize. Okay, and how do we reduce the dimensions? We have two major methods to reduce the dimension. First, we have feature selection, then we have feature extraction. In feature selection, what we do, we basically select which features are important and which features are not important, and we just ignore the irrelevant features, and we just consider the relevant features. So we remove the redundant features, and also there are certain features which are redundant. For example, we have a feature X, and there is another feature which is derived from X, suppose X square. So we can very simply remove x square na, because we can anytime derive x square from x. So we remove this type of feature as well, and we remove less important features using manual engineering. For example, suppose we are building a model. This is the example that I've taken so many times. Suppose we are building a model that what age of person buys what amount, basically shopping amount of a person in a month, depending on the age. In this particular model, the gender of a person is not relevant feature at all. Okay, so we just ignore that feature. So that is what we do in feature selection. The next thing that we have is feature extraction. In feature extraction, what we do, we transform the original data. Okay, suppose we have data with 5 features and all the features are important. So using feature extractions, we take the gist out of these 5 data and just convert the data into the 2 feature data. This is what we do. So these 2 variables have the essence of data, and the techniques that we use are principal component analysis, linear discriminant analysis, and non-negative matrix factorization. Majorly we are going to discuss about principal component analysis in our discussion. So let's talk about a few applications of dimensionality reduction. So first we have image processing, next we have speech recognition, then we have recommendation engine, and then we have text processing. So before I end this video and start with classification, I just want to give you a very good visualization on how reducing dimensions can save you a lot of space and eventually save you a lot of computation time, and still you will have the most relevant features intact. Okay, so this is the website to compress the size of an image. You can find a lot of similar websites on the internet, and I am uploading suppose this one image. Alright, and here we have put the image quality retention is 70%. That means the 70% of the features will be retained and 30% of the features will be just ignored. And yeah, and now we will compress the image, and you can very clearly see the size has gone from 4.3 MB to just 900 KBs, and this is a huge drop in size just by applying 30% reduction in size. And even if you see the image, you can see the image is still very shallow, very clear. Basically it is too zoomed in, and if I just zoom out, you can see the image is still very clear. So hence we can we apply dimensionality reduction to save size and eventually save space.